Welcome to Leading Minds Revealed, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on how today's top leaders harness the power of mindfulness to conquer the fast-paced, ever-changing world of business. In each episode, we sit down with C-suite executives and leaders who share their strategies for navigating rapid change with skill and clarity. Join us as we uncover the transformative mindsets that drive extraordinary leadership. These insights aren't found in business books, and they'll revolutionize the way you lead. And now, here's your host, Michael Apollo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Leading Minds Revealed. In this episode, we're exploring what it means to lead and innovate at the intersection of social media, technology, and human creativity, a space evolving faster than almost any other in business today. You're going to learn how leaders can navigate AI adoption with curiosity rather than fear, what it takes to build resilient, creative teams in an environment that never truly turns off, and how embracing our emotional data, the human side of social media, can actually drive smarter strategy and deeper connection. My guest today is a social media strategist and leader at Sprout Social, one of the most forward-thinking platforms in digital engagement. Before joining Sprout, she spent years in the agency world, leading special ops social teams, transforming client culture, and helping C-suite leaders understand what good social really looks like. Please welcome my guest, Petra Khan. Petra, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. And before we dive into your journey, I'd love to just set the stage. You said that we're at a point where the fear around AI taking jobs is fading, and the conversation is shifting towards how AI can make us better. What's the biggest mindset shift leaders and teams need today to adopt technology while staying creative and human?
I would say that we've historically spent a lot of time in whatever job function you have, whatever industry, doing, lack of better terms, monotonous tasks, more tactical, more you got to roll your sleeves up and get in there. And I think, especially in the last year, maybe even 6 months, AI has been really integral in changing that and making sure that your time spent and however many hours you choose to work a day can be more strategic, more thoughtful. And inherently, if you're getting rid of or eliminating or making those tasks that are not as fun, you'll feel more invigorated. You'll feel a lot more creative. You'll be able to have just more thinking power and brain time to approach tasks in creative ways.
I just literally got off a call with a creative agency just talking about the massive impact of turnover, of change, of letting go of large amounts of teams based on this idea that AI is the path forward. What do you say to your colleagues and that are sort of faced with that? What are you noticing in your field around what is AI clickbait and what is actually real?
That it's really funny we're having this conversation because I probably spent half my workday today talking about AI individually with my one-on-one direct reports and even as a team. And, you know, I always stress, and it's hard to say it in this environment, that in a lot of job functions, AI is not necessarily going to take away the things that you're doing. Now, if you really like the technical tasks, it's going to challenge you to redesign what you like out of your job, right? So that's what I tell some of my folks and some of my team members specifically who are like, is AI going to take me out of this job? I mean, I work for a tech company, I work for Sprout. We think about AI all the time, and we are always releasing AI features. And so my team will come to me and ask me, is this going to replace my job? And my answer is always and will always be no, it's going to make things easier for you. It's going to help you do your job a lot better, a lot quicker, and you can save time for those more strategic things. AI is a tool, but you need someone to drive the tool. It's a great train, but without a conductor, it goes nowhere.
That's been the common sentiment I've been hearing from a number of leaders in the AI space, from AI in accounting, AI in the legal professions, here AI in social and media work, had that you need that conductor. And what was interesting, Meredith Kepron, actually from OpsGuru, a sales AI tech company, and she worked with Amazon Web Services for a long time. She shared a really interesting story how there's a lot of organizations right now, specifically public companies, that under the guise of AI innovation are laying off large amounts of teams for quick profits. And and that's going to be massively devastating for a lot of these companies because, well, the way we should be thinking about it is, where is AI going to take us, and how can we really think about really allocate, like understanding it, learning about the technology, being able to figure out how this can help our work, how this could make us more creative, how this could free up more space within us to think more strategically. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you is sort of where we need to go, what we need to be thinking of as leaders.
I mean, I don't know how many times you've heard in your career where it's like, "I wish I had an assistant." Well, you have one now. They're just not it's just not a human sitting at a desk right next to you. You have someone there to keep you on track, to remind you things, to take your notes, like, so many things that take up so much space of your day, not just from a timepiece, but like, "Oh, I've gotta send that email." Well, you can have AI help you with that. And so I think to companies approaching AI as we're gonna augment our staffing approach and we're gonna eliminate staff, I think we'll probably see some initial perks, obviously, and costs, right? But I think that companies who harness the power of AI and understand that there needs to be a human intelligence partnered with it will exponentially, over time, be much further ahead.
Mm. So I want to take it now to social. I know when we connected, your day to day is always on. You're dealing with a lot of information. Social is a deep part of your life, and I'd love to know, where are you seeing trends moving towards in terms of AI and social, and also what are you thinking about that you think other leaders need to start thinking about, and organizations need to start thinking about in terms of like what's coming down the road and what you need to be prepared for?
I think the biggest piece before you even talk AI and you're thinking social and what does that mean and how it impacts your outputs on social channels, how it impacts how you're working as a team is, what is your core strategy and foundation? What are you looking to accomplish? Because I think from a social perspective, over the last 9 months, we've seen a lot of brands just say, well, we're going to be really reactive on social. We're going to do all these trends, focusing really, really a lot on Gen Z population on social. But we know like that's not the case anymore. And so brands have lost a lot of their true authenticity. And that's a hot topic word in the marketing industry because everyone wants to be authentic and everyone wants to be real, but then you really need to be real. Don't just say it and do it. And so then when you're thinking about AI specifically, if you're going to be creating content with AI, you're either going to lean into it and be honest about it. And if you're not ready to do that, it is not the time. AI can be really helpful when you're writing captions and you're like, you're a social media manager and you've got to do 65 posts for a month. And you're like, there's only so much how I can talk about this one product. AI is extremely helpful. And in my early days of my career, what I would have done to have something like AI help me copyright, I like it wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind, but I think marketers and social teams, specifically when it comes to AI, really need to think critically about how they are going to use it to develop the content that we're actually looking at, the pictures, the videos. That is where we're seeing a lot of audiences online, specifically younger generations, be really adverse to AI. But then there's other folks who are like all about it. And there's all that AI brain rot. And there's all those, and don't get me started, those like cat videos that are all AI. And if you're watching this, you've probably seen one of those and know exactly what I'm talking about. But all of those little aspects ladder up into one thing. Who are you as a brand? What are you looking to accomplish on your social channels? And who are you talking to? If you're not grounded in that, AI isn't even a topic of discussion right now. It isn't even about creating content. Your core strategy is absolutely essential first step before you do anything.
It's so interesting that in this, the age of AI and how it can amplify and augment, the tasks that we do, that the conversation is how can you be as authentic as possible as an organization, as a brand, as an individual. So, can you just maybe explain what do you mean by authenticity and what does that look like on social?
Authenticity looks really different, depends on who you are, but it's certainly not a luxury brand pretending that they're a brand for everyone online, right? It's certainly not a insurance brand commenting fun things under people's profiles. We know how people feel about healthcare and insurance, right? You need to understand who you are. You need to understand the market that you're in and how people perceive you first and foremost. It's an essential part of developing a strategy. But being real means creating the content that fits right for your brand, your mission, what you're out there actually doing every single day, and what your people want to see.
Wow, that was very straightforward to the point where I just had to take pause there to think about that and to internalize like, what is that? How does it apply to me? How does it apply to our organization? And in this brand development, I know there's just so much experience that you have in social, and you have also described social media as emotional data, as a pulse on how people like really feel,
Mhm.
and it's such a powerful way of framing it. I actually really changed my relationship to social media after one of our conversations that we've had, primarily around that. It's like, oh wow, this is giving me a lens into culture. This is giving me a lens into what's emerging. So, how does understanding emotion help leaders design better social strategies and connect more authentically with their audiences?
I would say, let's take a step before that, and your team needs to be diverse. Your team needs to have different backgrounds, come from different parts of life, because one bad thing on social could make or break your brand. We have seen it. I have seen cosmetic businesses go out, like makeup brands completely just shut down operations because they posted something on social and it didn't go well. I mean, um, we can talk about the Sabrina Carpenter ad, right? That did not land well on social. That was not emotionally smart. Was it maybe, a good idea in the moment? But we have to think about emotions from this larger perspective, especially given, social media is global. Anybody with a phone, anybody with internet connection will see the content that you are creating. And so, one, I always say, make sure your team is diverse. If your team isn't diverse, have them in, different situations, take them, to courses and learn about different things. But then the next step is, remembering that social media is a way for humans to connect. And you should be thinking about the content that you're producing and the strategy that you've created as a relationship builder, right? No one in their personal life would want a friend who all they do is say, look at all these amazing, great things that I'm doing all the time. And they never ask about them. They never engage with them, right? It should be like that on social.
And so, emotional data, you're looking like it's really tuning in and listening. And I think humanizing this interaction wherever it is, that social media isn't just this place like a billboard where we just put up these fancy or nice depictions of something or some ideas. It's an arena where we engage in conversations and truly connect with people from a more heart-centered kind of way. and to learn and to understand and to grow and to use that. And so when doing that, how could that be helpful? How have you seen that organizations who do take that intentional approach to their social media presence, what is that like? What's the outcome of something like that?
That's a really great question. It can look different depending on the brand and what they're doing, but I think ultimately what it does is you build a fan base, not even a fan base, you build your community, and your community is there and they are locked in. Like, think about Crumble Cookies. They've done such a good job at their marketing and their social. Dunkin' Donuts has done such a good job at their marketing and social. And that's because they really thought about, who am I talking to? What do they like? What do they value? And let's bring that to social. And then, I think honestly, we'll probably start seeing like social tying into in real life experiences, like, where you've seen something on social and you go see it in the store. We saw a lot of that before COVID. I think it kind of started to die down, but not to digress so much, but having strong brand equity is really important, especially in a world where consumerism is something that a lot of young folks are talking about, right? And you don't want to be dubbed a brand as like, well, I don't want to buy from them anymore because it's just a retail company. You want to build that loyalty with people. It helps from a social perspective when they're liking and they're commenting and they're sharing on your posts. But it helps your business bottom line. And people want that connection with brands. When brands comment on people's posts, they get so excited. Like, there are so many posts that have gone viral of people being like, I'm going to post this video before my plane, for my trip, and I want to see how many brands comment, by that time. And seeing all the brands flood in and all the people interacting with the brands, like, "What are you doing here?" Like, "Chili's, what are you doing here?" Like, people love it. It's just it brings down this, like, wall of, like, person versus brand, and it shouldn't be that way. We want brands and people, from a brand perspective, we want to be integrated in their life. We want to be the thing that they think of, like, "I want those crumble cookies." Like, I know that they're launching today on social. I wanna see what's there, and I'm gonna go get those cookies.
In Sprout, this is something that you do on a day-to-day basis, and um, you've shared that Sprout has built a reputation for having a very intentional culture and one that values boundaries, creativity, space to think. Um, what have been some of the practices? And just recently, I know we were just chatting around how you've really had a nourishing experience there, and that's made you rethink how you show up and maybe even how you work. And
Mhm.
so, what are some of the practices that you've seen there that help teams really stay innovative without burning out?
Yeah. 2 immediately come to mind. I think traditionally, a lot of folks who have worked in the marketing space, specifically when you're dealing with customers and clients, there is not really a clear sandbox. So you're kind of on your tippy toes waiting for something to come down the line, which makes it really incredibly difficult to focus on what is in front of you right now because you're like thinking about what if somebody asked me to do this? Sprout has been really intentional in the work that we've done, where there are packages that you buy. Now you can buy one that's custom, right? But this is a larger deal. But these packages allow us to be really intentional with our customers, and every single customer that comes through our door follows the same exact process, whether you are the biggest company in the world or you are a startup. And those processes allow our team to focus on the task at hand, think really critically about it, take the time that is needed so that the deliverable or whatever output that that customer is getting is one meaningful, impactful, and helps better their overall social program. So I have really appreciated that about Sprout. And I think the second piece is Sprout, when you join the company, you don't hit the ground running. They're very intentional about their onboarding process, even for managers too. You can as an entry level, right out of college person sit in the same onboarding as a C suite, right? Everyone is getting that same foundational information about the company. And you get these really good opportunities to chat with your cohort. And then when that onboarding is done, there is a steady flow of work that you're doing versus some other places. And I get some places are a bit more lean and they're not a developed tech company like Sprout where you hit the ground running day one. And it becomes hard to understand the philosophy of the company that you're at. And ultimately at Sprout, we're not selling an individual that you're working with, right? We know that people will take whatever platform makes them successful across their entire career. So everyone has enough time, has enough training and enablement to be aligned on that what that philosophy is. And so because of that, like any customer who's working with my team, like there's a 98% chance renewal with Sprout. Like that is absolutely crazy. Like our customers are unbelievably happy because no matter who they are talking to on the team, there is consistency. They know exactly what they're going to get, and they can trust that we have the right team and person to do that work.
It sounds to me that being really intentional about the culture, being very clear around what is the type of culture we have, but also how we do the work, creating really clear processes where possible, and also having a chance to create connection across the organization is something that's really important. Allows you to connect with the company as a whole. And I hear that that's something that you've gone through, and I think right now it's so important to prioritize that sense of communication, transparency, and trust. I think this is something that's coming up more and more and more right now, where even if it's difficult conversations that are being had, even if it's difficult information that needs to be shared, if that transparency is there, it it helps, and that candor is there, it really helps create that sense of trust and that ability to work through it. We might feel that we're protecting the people by not saying things or what have you, but by skillfully providing the right amount of information, I think it'd be a game changer. When I hear about your team and how much retention there is around the clients that you serve, I know that one of your leadership philosophies is around centers around creating environments where people can do their best work. And as you engage with your team members, what does that look like in practice? Like, how do you show up, and how do you approach creating those types of environments?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like when I met my team and I meet any new person that I'm going to be working with, is like, you have feedback for me, you have uncomfortable things to say to me. I am all ears. Everything goes both ways. Like, I am here if you want to talk about the lunch you had that was great or wasn't great, or if you want to deep dive into a deck, I'm absolutely here. I think meeting your team where they're at is essential. Some people love a more hands-on approach, and that helps them creatively think and talk through problems. Other folks really want to take away the issue and then come with you to the final solution. So I also make that known to the team. I'm happy to work in whatever way they choose to work. And I really value when I have that as leaders. And I have been like, I work, can be a little funky. Sometimes at 1 a.m., I get like a crazy kick of like a light bulb moment. And like, I want to have the flexibility that if I have a light bulb moment at 1 a.m. and I'm like, I'm going to crank something out for 2 hours, I might want to start at 10 a.m. Like, I don't want to be on at 8 a.m. after cranking out something. So it looks different for everyone. But I think going back to your point of transparency and phrasing it in the right way is really important. And just laying out the cards on the table and saying, here is how I am as a leader. What do you need from a leader? And it can change. And you have the right to also say, you know, last 6 months were difficult for me. And I really just wanted to be more hands off, but things are better for me now and I want to connect more. You have the right to change your working approach with me as well.
I think that comes back to that sense of communication and um, really being purposeful at creating those safe spaces to share what you need, what your needs are, to share viewpoints that maybe aren't what other people's have, or that you may feel could be not only contradictory, but that could rub people the wrong way, and just saying, hey, it's fine. Like we need to hear this now, right? Because things are changing so fast, and the faster that we can share important information, and especially diverse viewpoints, is so important. And I think this goes as well to what you were sharing around really fostering that sense of diversity within the team. It's so important. Cultural
Mhm.
diversity, gender diversity. The research shows, out of collective intelligence research in MIT, there's this concept called collective intelligence, the performance potential of a team. They found that the amount of women on a team directly equates to increased performance across a team when you actually have that gender diversity. And it's so important within tech companies, especially, I think, to understand that, right? And then also diversity in terms of cultures, diversity in terms of perspectives, so important to foster conversational turn taking, right?
Mhm.
So to be able to not have one person take up all the airspace, so important to hear from people who perhaps are a little bit more quiet. And also, I think so important, and I think this is a little bit to what you were talking about earlier on, to intuit the inner lives of your colleagues. So they call it social perspective taking. And I think you sort of need that in social media, right? It's to like, hey, what are people thinking about? And to really embrace that empathy. It seems like that's like what you're pointing to around what creating that environment where people can do their best work just sort of embodies.
I mean, absolutely. It can be as little as like, do you need to have your one-on-one with your camera off? That is okay. Like, it's for me, I've always found, like, it is the littlest things. If someone is stressing out that they're not feeling good and they can't log in, like, that is a major problem. You need to feel that work-life balance. If you don't feel it, you're not gonna show up, and it's not advantageous to me as a leader. If I thought just about myself and the outputs that I'm looking for my team, and I wanted to be the most strategic leader and I didn't care about people, it's still the same way of working, in my opinion. I just happen to really care about people, and I want people to be happy and feel heard and feel really happy about showing up to work. We spend the majority of our days with our work colleagues. We do. I talk to my work colleagues more than my own family sometimes. I need to have a good relationship. I need to understand them. I need to be able to respect their boundaries, be able to listen to them should they need it. It's super integral to every working environment.
You were speaking around how at Sprouts, there's this very intentional approach towards the processes and how you work so that there's more balance. I think in how work is distributed, and when all clients, for example, go through this similar process. In a previous conversation we had, you shared that you can't really turn it off in this industry. You can't
Mhm,
really turn the tech off in this industry, and that maybe you shouldn't.
mhm,
And it's such an interesting take, especially in a world that the concept of digital detox is really coming out there, the attention economy, right? Where there's this monetizing our attention through
mhm.
some of these platforms, and how there's this sort of purposeful disconnecting is in some circles being prioritized.
Mhm.
So maybe could you just build a little bit on that? How do you sustain your energy, your creativity, your mental focus when the work itself is so intertwined with your digital life?
That's a great question, and I've probably spent especially the last maybe 3 years trying to figure out what is that healthy balance. I like social. That's what I got in this game. Like, I studied PR. That was what I intended to do, and then I just got a miraculous social media internship when Instagram was just starting to kinda be hot, and I was like, "Wait, this is really fun." So, I mean, you don't always get to do what you love, right? But let's say for the sake of it, let's talk about social. Um, I think one of the ways in which you can be always on and understand how the industry is changing and dynamic and be able to keep up with what's really important without losing yourself and being, terminally online, because we want to be chronically online, maybe not terminally, right? Um, is being choiceful with the content that you watch, right? Like, I won't lie, like I love a good TikTok drama, right? I love it. It's fun to watch it play out. But if I start watching too much of it, then my entire page becomes that. And then I get really worn out because I'm listening to things that are like they kinda suck, like, I'm like, "Dang, like, that sucks that that happened to you." So, what I have found, especially I think since we last talked and thinking about how I'm more intentional with how I'm staying up to date is, like, noticing when I'm watching or absorbing content that isn't fruitful to my career, doesn't really shape the industry, right? Like that I'm talking like TikTok drama, like, wedding TikTok drama is my one that I used to love. It is really hard to watch all the time. So, I was like, I wanna be on social, I wanna scroll, I wanna enjoy the content that I was enjoying before. So, if I catch myself watching too many, I need to scroll. And it's a boundary that you have to set within yourself, just like you would set a boundary in a relationship with somebody. But to the point of being you do have to be always on. Like every 3 months, we are talking something new in social. Like not let's take trends outside of it and those like very reactive social trends. We are talking about new things, new ways of reaching people. Platforms release new features and there's new platforms that come up. There are platforms that could disappear. And so you do need to stay on. I would also encourage people to build relationships with professionals outside of their workplace because I think that's really helpful. And so, like, while it's important to relationship build while you are at a job, it's really important to keep those relationships going should you guys not work together anymore. Because then you get these different perspectives. Then also talking about it doesn't feel like a job because it's not on the company's time where you're like, okay, client came to us with this issue or this ask about this new feature, right? I have found, especially since being, newer and switching roles and companies that it's been really refreshing to talk to some of my old colleagues about what's going on in social. And I have felt like, oh, this is like something I really like and it doesn't feel like work.
So really, what I'm hearing is it comes down to passion and purpose, and really feeling aligned in the work that you do, and then also being really choiceful in the type of information that you consume. So I think being really intentional and, like you were saying, like, and building those solid boundaries, what I'm hearing is really, really important. Being very choiceful. And I think this is where, you know, that awareness comes up. And I wonder if younger generations, because it's just so familiar, it could be just easier to connect with that choice of this is going to nourish me or this is not, and so therefore I'm going to switch. Or it becomes so habit to stay on it, and it consumes us. And I think just like anything for anybody, you could binge watch TV, you could eat certain foods nonstop. But then really there comes a point, I mean, and I think in anything, even including in social, you could be swept away or you could be choiceful. And I think viewing it's not the platforms that perhaps are the enemy,
Hmm.
but really just like with the food isn't the enemy, but
Hmm.
what's our relationship to it and being really choiceful. And so that's really what I was hearing there. So thank you for sharing that. I want to talk about generations for a moment because I think
Hmm.
you have a pulse. When we think of Gen Z, millennials, even Gen Alpha emerging right now. Recently, I was speaking to a few executives, and they were speaking around how the younger generations have seen how completely being consumed in the work has impacted their families, both from a sickness aspect, from disruptions in relationships, quality of life, etc. Their relationship with their parents. And so what they're doing right now is they're seeking greater balance. They're seeking not to have the same outcomes, unintentional outcomes as their parents. I'm just from your perspective, just being so dialed in from on the social world, working within a very innovative, emerging organization that I'm just assuming, I'm putting the assumption out there has probably a younger employee base, but maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong there. What is it that younger generations are looking for and in organizations today, and especially during this time of massive change with AI coming in?
I think people are not just viewing jobs as a paycheck. I mean, ultimately, we all want to get paid. So if that's your motivation, there's no shame in that. But if you're going to spend a lot of time doing something, you want to like it just a little bit. And I've certainly noticed, especially if I think about like my industry in particular. I remember growing up and being like, watching Sex and the City and Samantha Jones was doing all these like crazy events. And I'm like, that's why I want to get into PR. That looks really fun. But now that wouldn't bring me the joy. I like to be in home. That's why I work remote. That's one of the things I value when I'm working for a company. And so I think as we're growing, we're finding what's really important and maybe the flashy jobs that seem really fun, being courtside at a NBA game on their social team seems like a lot of fun, but oh my God, it's a lot of work, right? So I think that honestly goes back to like work-life balance is absolutely really key, especially in a space where you are online all the time. Because effectively, in one way or another, you're always reachable. So when you can have those boundaries in your workplace, that is really, really important. And then if I'm thinking about like what I'm seeing in general on social, um, there if you go on TikTok, there is a lot of humor about corporate life and the younger generation and corporate America and corporate speak and circling back and zooming out to 30,000-foot view lens. They're over it. Like they're not into it. Um, but I think they're finding their passions. I've seen a lot of people starting their own businesses. I don't think that being super rich and having a glamorous job feels like a large motivation for people. I think, like you've mentioned, that purpose is really important. And if anything, social gives people the chances to explore their passions and make additional income and maybe make a livable wage when, you love to DIY costumes. Like, in another world without social, that'd be very hard to make a living on. But now you can. And so again, we can reach a fine line of where does a passion point, like DIYing costumes, like embroidering earrings, and I'm just throwing out a couple of random examples. Where does that passion stop and then become a job, right? Especially in the social roles. And I can ramble about it all day, but if anyone is watching, like, I watch both of my parents work really, really hard and like I value hard work, but I think be really choiceful with your next step, right? Like be really choiceful with what you're looking to do. You're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
I really resonate with that, and I've noticed that as well. I think people are becoming more and more choiceful, and I think organizations are coming to grasp about that. They want the flexibility, they want the quality of life. I think what's happening is we're just learning more and more what it means to create cultures that are healthy and human.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think now there's a bit more of a voice that
Hmm.
humanity can feel unified in that way using social to
Yeah.
say things that maybe one person it would be really hard for them to say in a large organization, but a collective of a few 100,000 on social, it could change cultures. You shared with me that you almost became an anthropologist and that, social media became your sort of modern version of it. I know culturally this is something that's been fascinating for you in terms of your upbringing. How has that shaped the way that you approach leadership today?
Yeah, I mean, for the viewers, I grew up with 2 very distinctly different cultures. My dad is from Jordan, was an immigrant, whole family from his side, comes from a way different background than my mom, and both my grandparents from my mom are from Iowa. So, like, I grew up in very distinctly different household, but my household, I'm so grateful. It just worked and it just melded. I don't have a reality in my existence where people from different backgrounds cannot work together harmoniously. That is just not fathomable to me because I did not grow up like that. So when it comes to leadership, I there are so many golden nuggets and amazing perspectives and backgrounds. And it just like even humor from people from different countries. Like it's just incredible. Like it's just incredible that the variety, it's like it brings creativity, it brings a lot of fun, learning, like, when you work with, like, somebody in South Africa and you learn something new and you're like, "Oh, that's, like, really cool." Or you learn about, how the French have a different sense of humor and, like, well, when you're writing marketing copy in French, like, you have to approach it this way, and you're like, "You know what? I never thought of that, but that is actually super funny." Like, I love those kinda things, like, I love these little intricacies that we have as humans that we don't think about all the time. Like, I just find them so fascinating. And so when you're able to build a team with people who come from so many different backgrounds, you bring that in, you naturally attract high level candidates because they're like, this is also a really cool environment. And you're not going to find all the high level candidates in one city. No way. They're everywhere. They're scattered. And I honestly, I want them all if I could have it.
Well, anybody that's listening that wants to work with Petra, just make sure to check the description because we're going to share her contact information shortly. Um, you know, as we come near the end of this episode, I'd love to sort of end on this. If a leader is listening today and wants to foster creativity and innovation within their own team, especially in industries being transformed by technology, where should they start?
Start by looking at your own biases, challenging them. I think that's really, really important. Challenge the things that you value and ask yourself, why do you value them? Challenge the things that you struggle with and ask yourself, why do you not like these things? Chances are a lot of the times you may have just learned them from a workplace that wasn't great and you've carried them along in their career. And it's felt like that's just how work is. Challenge it. It doesn't have to be like that. So that would be my first step. And then always just growing as a person. You never stop. It's not about reading the latest articles and in social. It's growing as a human, you know? I love to go down rabbit holes of subcultures. Like, I want to know about all these people. I'm right now in the rock and roll subculture, knee deep in there, learning about people who love rock music. Because I have somebody on my team who loves rock music. I want to get her. I want to understand her. Like, I want to connect with her. So, always learning and growing. And just being transparent and clear with your teams and just fostering a space where communication feels natural and easy both ways.
I love that. Just so clear, succinct, and simple. It isn't easy, but not only do I think that that is an amazing mantra to and practical insights to follow as a leader, but I think so important for society in general as well, just to connect with that sense of perspective taking, that sense of empathy, that sense of continuous self growth and exploration, and skillful communication that creates a sense of harmony. When we're in such a polarized reality we're in, no matter what viewpoint we find ourselves connected to, I think there's always that room for growth and always that room to find a way to be more compassionate. And so, Petra, I'm so grateful for our time together. If any of our listeners would like to connect with you or potentially work with you on your team, how can they follow you? How can they reach out?
Find me on LinkedIn, message me. Don't be shy. I love to connect. Let's set up a coffee chat and share me your thoughts. Give me your hot take. What's your favorite video? Like, drop me something funny. Like we don't have to be serious. As you can see, I'm not the most serious person. So drop me something funny. What's your favorite dad joke? Like something interesting.
Petra, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I'm going to take away so much around thinking about the cultures that we create at work, our relationship with social media, how I can think about the information diet that I have, the information I'm feeding my mind, and then also how we can really best support creating thriving cultures moving forward. And I think we you did such an amazing job sharing your insights with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed all of our conversations, and I appreciate, like, honestly, the space that you create so that I can sit here and actually think about all of the things going in my brain.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. I love this. And yeah, it's been such a joy. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. This brings us to another episode at the end of another episode of Leading Minds Revealed. I'll see you on the next one.
Leading Minds Revealed podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights, join the conversation, and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.